Thank you, everyone. Okay, can you hear me? I can hear myself, so that's good. Okay, hello, I'm Courtney. I was told about 2.5 hours ago that I'd be doing a talk to fill in the gap. But I am super excited to talk about art always because I'm an artist. I'm also a UX person, so I work in technology. I manage a design and research team at Pendo, and I'm an artist, like I said. So being an artist led me to being a designer. I get to practice a lot of creativity in the work that I do. And yes, my website is courtneykyle.com. And if you would like to follow me on Instagram, that's what that QR code would take you to. So I'm just going to give a little bit of history about how I came up through art, became a designer, and then a perspective on AI, because I think there's a lot of fear in the artist community from creatives about AI. What is it going to do to our art, our copyright, and the work that we do? So I'm just going to share a perspective on that from someone who works with the technology. So really, I mean, I'm a classic, artist. I've been wanting to do art my whole life since I became self-aware and self-conscious at like the age of 3 or 4. I knew I wanted to do art. Eventually got to study fine art at university. But as most of us find out when we are in art school, there aren't really any career paths as an artist. As much as I loved oil painting and sculpture, there weren't any sensible careers out there, at least lucrative careers waiting for me. So I found graphic design. I thought, great, this will pay the student loan debt that I'm accruing now. So it's a very sensible option, graphic design, and I got a lot out of it. It's still very creative. I get to work with, visual media. And after my university career ended, I found a job in publishing. So I was very lucky to go into a publishing company and work as a graphic designer and work my way up to art direction and owned the creative of a lot of different books and magazines that were published internationally. I was really proud of that work. It's really hands-on creative work that I got to do. But over time, publishing was becoming more and more digital. So the hands-on creative work that I was doing became more programmatic. And over time, it started to feel like I was coding more than I was designing. So I filled the gaps by doing some branding and more graphic design projects. I did not work for any of these logos here. That would be so cool if I did. I did not, but I've done actually quite a few projects in Sheffield. So if you've ever run the Round Sheffield Run, I did that logo. So if you have one of those medals, that was me. And if you live in Crooks, the Donna Cafe in Crooks, it's also another one of my designs I'm super proud of. I've done loads of other work in Sheffield and also in the States, both in publishing and graphic design. But even that, ultimately, the industry is just changing. You're getting chased out by technology. I found it really hard to compete with the likes of, Canva, people using Canva to do their marketing, their graphic design, and also hard to compete with people from Fiverr who are charging, really small amounts of money to do the same work that I was doing. Now, as a creative person, I'd always been super interested in technology and innovation, and I thought it would be really cool to work in tech. I didn't think I had the chops to do it, but the more that I kind of thought about it and explored it and took some courses, I realized there's something there. And I got really lucky in 2017. I was able to find a job as a UX designer at a tech company. So I found myself transferring my skills in visual design and human-centric thinking over into the tech industry. And I've been very lucky. I still get to be very creative in a lot of ways. And even now as a manager, I call on that creativity a lot to get things done. So it's a very good career. But definitely as an artist and a creative person, I've always felt technology nipping at my heels. And so it really struck me last year, paying attention to other artists and creatives that I follow on social media. I noticed how much fear there was in their hearts and minds when it came to AI. They're all panicking. They're saying, I'm not going to participate in this world. I'm going to take my art off the internet. They're all wanting to opt out because they think AI is going to steal their work, it's going to steal their copyright, it's going to knock them out of the job. Now, I think fear is really seductive. I think any negative emotion is really cheap. It's easy to lean into, it's easy to buy into, and become part of that tribe of fear, uncertainty, doubt. I prefer to be brave. I actually thought about putting some rose-tinted glasses on for this talk today because it would be very appropriate. But the reality is that it's not the technology that's going to steal your art or take your job. It's simply what humans have been doing through like all of human history. We innovate, we optimize. It's how we scale. We are self-interested as a society in growing and expanding, and technology helps us to do that. And also, throughout human history, the way that culture expands is through copying, it's through stealing, it's through the derivative work that you do. You watch other people do work, and then you kind of steal that, and you work off of it. Humans mimic each other. That's simply how we operate. But we're always capable of adapting. Like, this was a reality once. To make a phone call, someone had to pull a plug out and put it in somewhere else. It was a very manual task. We can't even imagine that happening these days. But technology has always been nipping at our heels. So really, what I would say to artists, and I don't know if we have, show of hands, is there anyone in here who actually does art, any artists, or do you know any artists? Yeah? Okay. So if this advice isn't for you, then you can share it with your artist friends. I mean, the key thing is really just to keep making art. That's the most important thing for any artist to do. And actually, I think all of these tips that I've noted down are very sensible for anyone. But when I was reading all these posts, social media blog posts from artists who are just fearful and wanting to opt out, I was just thinking like, well, there's some sensible things that you could do to kind of hold your own, save your space. The first is just like basic data hygiene. Be mindful of what and where you post online. If you're posting on Instagram and Meta, you can actually opt out of having your art consumed by the AI engines. That doesn't mean that it's not going to get spread elsewhere on the internet, but you have some control over that. And it's meaningful to just know where you've posted your art. Like, just keep track of that. It's going to show up in some AI-generated search results later on, and you should know the sources of all of your data. The next one is just being conscientious about where you store your data. There was a point in time not long ago when I realized that I had data in Google and Dropbox and Apple and Facebook and all these different places. And I just thought, I can't keep track of this. Like, what happens if one of them gets hacked? I don't know where that information's going. So I just think it's a really good practice to keep everything centralized. If it's really important, put it on an external hard drive, like have a backup of it somewhere. And that data, like something that's really important from an artist's perspective, when we think about copyright, is like just taking photos of your work as you work on it. It's going to have metadata on it. It's going to have a timestamp, date stamp. As and when, if you should ever need to like fight for your right, if a commercial entity is stealing your work, you need to be able to like show proof of the creation that you own that work. I have a tendency to take process photos and keep all of those, but those are really important to keep. And then two, pay attention to evolving technology. There's a lot of solutions that are emerging for copyright management, which are really cool. One of them is called Nightshade. I think this is University of Chicago, but what they were looking at there is a way to create like a digital stamp on your images that includes like a copyright signature. Adobe also has something now, I think it might just be in Photoshop, but I imagine it'll expand elsewhere, where you can include a copyright signature on your artwork or any image that you export from Photoshop. That stuff's not perfect, but it's a start, and I imagine, rose-tinted glasses, that technology will evolve to give us more protections for our copyright and for maintaining that. The other thing I think is just being vigilant and actually raising issues when they come up. I think often people are afraid or reluctant to, put in a support ticket or or like raise an issue when they hear one. But having worked in a few different tech companies now, like I know there's humans on the other side of that, and we actually read those tickets when they come in. We might not always respond to them, but the information that we see when we see support tickets and complaints or whatever, it influences the human who reads them. I mean, I know there have been many times where I have advocated for something or complained about something internally, and it's because I read it from customer feedback. I might not have gone to that customer and told them that I've been advocating for them because I saw it in a scroll of like 100 different pieces of feedback. But all of that stuff shapes the humans who are looking at it. So it's really important to always raise those issues. And the last thing is just to embrace change and use AI. I use AI, I use ChatGPT to help me draft my social media posts. I think social media is a very boring job, and I would rather somebody help me with it. And ChatGPT, I can do that for free. I also write a newsletter. I've had ChatGPT help me write drafts for it, give me frameworks for articles that I want to write. And it just gives me something to work off of so that I'm not having to spend all of my energy on these tasks that aren't as rewarding for me as an artist. Using AI just gives me an opportunity to spend more time doing art. I have written an article about this on my newsletter about how I use AI. There'll be more examples in there, but it's really useful, especially for things like ideation. I've used Midjourney before to pitch an idea to it and have it sketch something for me and then kind of iterate on that. And then that gives me a reference image that has come from my mind that I can then work off of and create my own art from. So no AI or machine can replace your handiwork. It cannot replace the artifacts you place into the world. It does not have your heritage, your stories, or your experiences. Like, as an artist, I love making all sorts of things. Like, I like using my hands. I've made... this thing doesn't like me. I've made like quilts before, and even in my art, like when I'm painting, I'm calling on that experience of, having sat at my grandmother's feet and watched her make quilts and sew and do embroidery and all of that. That features in my work now. No machine or AI will ever have that to call upon when it creates or generates anything. So the work that we do as artists, the work that your friends who are artists do, it's very important. The world needs it. It's important to keep making art. And for those of you who are not artists, you might be thinking to yourselves, how can you help artists? It's simple. Buy more art. Don't buy the cheap shit from Amazon or Etsy. Like, go find a local shop and buy actual art. You can also buy art from my website, courtneykyle.com/shop. But that is how you can support artists. You see something that's been made by hand, you like it, buy it. You're doing the world a service. All right, that's it. That's my talk.